Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Club. This is the place everyday real estate investors gather to share their best stories, biggest insights, and favorite tactics to grow a portfolio of cash flowing properties in today's market. Here's your host, Gabe Petersen.
All right, we are back with another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. I hope you guys are having a great day, great week, wherever you are, whatever day it is for you. As always, actually, I can't say that right now because it is Thursday. It is not Friday on the podcast. We're doing those single one-off Thursday episodes, but either way, it's a good day because we got Chris Williams with us here on the show. Chris is from Assets Real Estate. They focus on they used to be they are a brokerage, but their main focus today is buy and hold single family with some creative financing and wholesaling sprinkled in there. So if you guys, everybody out there who is interested in sticking with residential, those single family houses that we all know and love, and you're interested in learning how to get into those creatively with seller financing, et cetera, those kind of things, this is the episode to listen to. Chris, I'm excited to hop into this. Thanks for hopping on.
Yes, thank you for having me, Gabe. Definitely excited to be up here and definitely excited to talk to your audience and be able to share some value with them.
Cool, man. I told you before we got on here, we always like to start with stories. We like to hear how people got to where they are. I'm sure you got a good one. Why don't you tell us how you got here?
Yeah, of course. So I started in real estate about 6 years ago when I was 20 years old. So I started out a bit different than many other investors. I started out as a real estate agent. It's funny. I actually found out about real estate investing before I became an agent.
Hey, Chris, real quick, I'm going to ask you just to physically move your body just a little bit farther away from your mic. It's creating a little bit of a distortion there. That's good.
Okay, keep me better now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, perfect. So I found out about real estate investing before I became an agent. And I thought at the time you had to have just a ton of money. You just had to have like hundreds of thousands in the bank. And mind you, I'm 19 years old at the time. I'm like, man, I have 37 cents in my account. Like, there's no way I can purchase any properties. So I was like, okay. I was working at Foot Locker at the time selling shoes. And I thought, all right, if I could sell shoes, I could sell houses. And I started as a real estate agent.
I like that confidence. If I can sell shoes, I can sell houses.
Yeah, I thought it was the same thing. I was like, it's all sales at the end of the day. Why not just give it a try? So I did the real estate agent thing for about 4 years, I want to say. And then investing just kept on popping up. And my first brokerage that I was at, they actually told us to stay away from investors. So I really didn't deal with investors at all because that's what they told us to do. They told us to stay away. It was a waste of time and a waste of your resources.
I'm curious, why do they say that? Because I have heard that before from like real estate agents and brokers that there's a certain subset that do not like working with investors, but I've never really gotten their reason. What is the reason there?
Yeah, the way it was explained to me was more so the investors that would reach out to you would be like, let's say, beginning investors. And, like beginning wholesalers, especially, is maybe a person who watches a YouTube video and they say they're an investor. So in that sense, yes, I could definitely see how it would be a waste of time. But there wasn't too much context given to me, like the difference in the niches in real estate investing. So I didn't really know. Versus when I was able to get into different opportunities in real estate, then I started seeing other like real big time investors. I'm like, okay, like this makes a lot of sense to work with them. So I got connected with some pretty good investors in the area, and they were purchasing a lot of properties. And from them, like whether we were doing novations, whether we were doing flips, things like that, I was able to scale my real estate business significantly. So I'm like, okay, this is cool. Working here and like seeing how much money they're making, but they were also encouraging me to do it myself. Now, honestly, Gabe, I was scared to do it. I'm like, man, I'll just let y'all do it. I don't exactly know how I'm gonna do it. Like, I'll just stick to this real estate agent stuff. But they were saying you're gonna make so much more money if you just do it yourself. I'm like, all right, fine. I'll give it a try. And the first property that I actually purchased was my neighbor's house. And the reason I purchased it was because I had it listed on the market and nobody wanted it. And I was just like, okay, instead of just having it sit for forever, I already spent this money marketing it. Let me just buy it myself. I already been learning these things about investing, and I purchased it via creative financing via the subject to method. And that was my rental property.
Very cool. Very cool. And
Thank you.
I do like, I mean, that was essentially an expired listing, a dead listing.
Yep.
And that strategy for finding deals is a good one because those
100%.
deals that have been sitting on market, sometimes they sit there for 6 months, like just an
Yes.
insanely long amount of time. And that if, well, I mean, there are some circumstances where they're not going to be motivated, but the majority of the time, those owners are going to be like, I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Yeah.
They've probably gone in and out of contract a couple
Mhm.
times. They're just tired and they just want to move on. And so if you can approach them, get to their number, get to their asking price, but do it creatively, then you can definitely get those kind of deals done. So I like that was your first, at least investing deal, was
Yeah.
doing it, creative financing.
Yeah.
Uh,
100%.
Awesome. I love that. So from that point on, well, actually take us a couple more steps down into the subject to deal. This was your first time doing it. And so that perspective is what a lot of the listeners do want to hear, is that
Mhm.
first time perspective, getting those deals done. Tell us about that first deal. How did it go?
Yeah, so it was fun because if you know, subject to is a lot different than your standard acquisition as far as like your one-page contract when it comes to wholesaling or flips, things like that. Subject to is this requires a relationship with the homeowner. So it is a good thing that I did. It was my neighbor, so one, we already have a relationship, and two, I was already a listing agent.
Well,
So
and also explain what subject to is for everybody.
yeah, so subject to is purchasing the property existing to the subject's existing terms on the property as far as the mortgage goes. So a lot of people will say is assuming. It's not assuming, but in essence is in that same bracket. So if the seller has a 1,500 monthly payment with a 3% interest rate, you also get the same interest rate, the same monthly payment. Now a lot of people will get confused because they're like, okay, well the mortgage still remains under seller's name. How do I actually have the property? Under subject to, you acquire the deed, and the deed is where the true ownership lies, not necessarily the mortgage.
And why would I'm on the commercial side. I buy mobile home parks, RV parks, self storage facilities,
Mm-hmm.
and on that side, nobody's going to do subject to. And I've never successfully done one. So
Mm-hmm.
I've always been curious why on the residential side this is a common practice. Subject to is a strategy that people just they crush it with.
Yep.
I never understand how you can get somebody to agree to that, because you're essentially taking the valuable part of the real estate, which is the deed, from the property and leaving them with the liability. So why would somebody be amenable to that kind of strategy?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Gabe. It's all about the value that you can provide to the seller. So I would say it doesn't work in every single situation because you're also offering the seller upfront fee, or sometimes you're not. But if they were to sell the property traditionally, let's say they get 80K based on their equity and based on anything else that they're paying out. In a situation like that, maybe it doesn't work because at least for my strategy, I'm not willing to pay a seller 80K for an entry fee for single family residential. It doesn't make much sense. But for what about those sellers that are underwater? In our area specifically, we have a lot of military personnel where they're moving every 2 years and such. And especially like what's happened with the housing market, they purchased 2 years when the market was at the tippity top. Now they want to sell. Well, they don't really have much. They're not going to make any money, actually. They're probably going to lose money if they were to sell their property. So that's
Yeah.
where subject to is very prominent because they can't sell it traditionally.
Got it. Makes sense. All right, so take us on from that first deal. You got a subject to deal done, which is awesome. How well do you still own that property?
Yep, I still do.
Cash flowing.
Yep, the cash flow is about 800 a month.
Nice. I love to hear that. So what happened from that point on? I mean, you focused a little bit more. You doubled down on wholesaling and single family long term holds. How has it been progressing?
Yeah, it's been going well. I would say actually, like within purchasing that first one, probably like less than 30 days later, I purchased my second one. And that's when I learned about the wrap strategy, as far as like instead of holding a traditional tenant in the property, like doing an agreement for deed with your quote unquote your tenant. So that's helped me a lot because one of my biggest fears when it came to being a landlord was, okay, what happens if the property needs repairs? Now this cutting into my cash flow. What happens if the tenant stops paying rent? And then what happens if my entry fee is just super high? So learning about the wrap strategy has helped me a lot mitigate some of those concerns that I had.
So take us a couple layers down into that one. Tell us about the wrap strategy. What is it and why do you like it?
Yeah. So the wrap strategy is basically an agreement for deed. So we call it the wrap strategy because what do we call them? Let's say your tenant, quote unquote, they are your agreement for them is wrapping around your existing mortgage. So an agreement, an example of that would be, I'll give an example from the second property that I purchased. The current mortgage with the subject to in place is $1,700, right? That's the current seller's mortgage. That's what I'm paying every single month. Now, because I do have a wrap buyer in the property, that wrap buyer, they pay me $2,500 a month, and they also gave me a 12K down payment. Now, this is stretched over a 30-year period. So I like the wrap strategy because basically I become the bank in that sense. And any repairs, anything that has to do with the home, I don't have to deal with any of that. For that tenant, quote unquote, this is like their property.
Okay, so just because this is also a strategy that I do not do, and I always love hearing about this stuff.
Yeah.
I have heard of it before. We've had some other guys come on here who do this, but it's an interesting strategy. So essentially, what you're doing is you're buying a property subject to the existing mortgage. So the existing mortgage at whatever interest rate it's at, it stays there. Nothing happens to it.
Exactly.
And then you resell. You're marketing the property. You resell that same property and put your own contract on top of the existing mortgage, your own essentially note. Or wait, is it like lease to own, or are you putting a mortgage on top of the mortgage?
It's basically a mortgage on top of the mortgage, because instead of doing instead of actually reselling it, I would say they're still my tenant in the eyes of the court. There's based on my contracts, they're still a tenant, so I can foreclose on the property versus if I was to, versus I can evict them. Yes, that's what I meant. I'm sorry.
So it is a lease. It's a rent to own essentially.
Yeah. In a sense, yes. Our contracts are a bit different than rent to own. They're more so agreement for deed specifically. It makes it easier to actually evict versus having to go through an entire foreclosure process, which can be much more difficult and costly.
Yeah. So you're reselling the property on this agreement for deed, which basically stipulates that they are going to be paying an additional mortgage. I mean, it's not a mortgage, but an additional mortgage on top of what exists there. And then you're going to take the spread between what is the mortgage that you did the subject to on, and then what you put on the agreement for deed that you put on top of that.
Yep, exactly.
Interesting. Cool. And then you also you said you do wholesaling still, correct?
Yes. Big fan of wholesaling.
Yeah, it's an interesting strategy because a lot of, I think there's 7 states out there that it's no longer legal to do wholesaling and you have to do double closing. And Virginia is not one of those, it sounds like.
So Virginia, they did make a law that you do have to be licensed, though. Now, of course, this doesn't affect me because I still have my active real estate license. I also have a real estate brokerage. So we're protected there. But recently they did pass it that if you do 2 or more transactions, you do need to be licensed in Virginia.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and that's just if you do 2 or more transactions, period, you have to be licensed.
Yep, 2 or more wholesale transactions, you do have to be licensed. Now, like I said, it doesn't really affect me too much, but it does help the broker side because we got a lot of investors who need a place to hang their license now.
Yeah. So how does I've always been interested on that side of things. I have heard of brokers who do wholesaling or agents who do wholesaling. And so how does that work? Because, as an agent, you have the responsibility to let your client know that you can either list it or wholesale it, and these are the different options. How do you do a wholesale while still being an agent?
Yeah, so I think the best answer for that is you don't, to be honest with you. You don't go in there as an agent. We wear different caps, I'll say. So one, I'll have an agent cap and I'll also have an investor cap. So I think a big thing with us is being transparent and honest with the seller as possible. So first thing I always tell the seller is when I'm speaking for my investor cap, my goal is to profit as much as possible. Now, I want to help you, of course, but we need to profit as much as possible. And when you can start the conversation like that, they're very understanding versus if you're going in there and you're kind of like, oh, I just want to sell your property such and such, where they can get confused because they're like, okay, well, what's going on here? So I think it's very important to be very transparent up front with them.
But you do need, I think per the law, you do need to tell them that you're a broker, correct?
Yes, of course. Yep. And that's always included in my contracts. And plus in my initial acquisition appointment, not only do I tell them that I am a licensed agent, but I also own a brokerage. I'll give them the links and resources so they can check us out. So we're always very transparent and honest with any seller.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so why do you prefer wholesaling over listing and getting your listing fee?
Oh, it's much larger gains, I'll say, as far as yeah, much larger fees, or not fees, but assignment fees are much larger than commissions. So for example, our average sales price in this area, let's say about 300K. 3% commission of that is 9K. Now, thankfully, because I do own my brokerage, I'm able to get 100% of that commission. But a normal agent, they have their agent splits with the brokerage. So after all the splits, they may be walking away with 50% of that. So $4,500.
Really? I didn't
Yeah,
know
yeah,
that. So agents only
yeah.
get 50% of the sale
I
whenever
would say
that's
averaging it out, it can depend. I would say 50-50 is very typical, 70-30. 90 10s and 100s are usually reserved for the top agents, I will say. But yeah, 70-30, 50-50. So let's say they walk away with 5K. That's what a typical agents walk away from an average price home. But the average assignment fee for a wholesale on the low side, I would say about 10K.
Mm,
You know, my average is around 35K, give or take.
yeah, yeah.
So much larger on that side.
So let's talk about marketing. That is something. I mean, if you're doing wholesaling, that is the name of the game. Is marketing. And so, how do you go about generating leads?
Yeah, my biggest one, honestly, is social media marketing. So as of last year, I started getting more into systems and getting into a little bit of paid ads and things like that. But what's worked for me has just been social media marketing. Not even marketing like super aggressively, but just dropping hints here and there, like posting my normal content saying, hey, if you guys know of any distressed properties or know of any properties that look like they need a lot of work, let me know. I'll pay cash for the property. And also speaking to my audience, letting them know I will pay them a finder's fee, just simple finder's fee of $1,000 or whatever it is for sending me a property if they can connect me with the homeowner.
Interesting. Okay, so it's literally organic posting. You're going out there. Is it Facebook or what platforms are you using?
Instagram. I use Facebook also, but I've seen the most success from Instagram specifically.
Yeah, Facebook it's an interesting. This is completely unrelated, but Facebook is interesting because I feel like it was the biggest and is the biggest social media platform, but I just don't hear of people using it that aren't in real estate or in real estate people. They're all out there. They're in their groups and they're talking. But
yeah,
Facebook I feel like is only used by the boomers. But that's where a lot of people hang out. That boomers own a lot of houses. So.
Yeah, I would say Facebook was great. Like for my dispositions, I'll just put it on Facebook, to be honest with you, and usually get some hits off there.
Yeah, for sure. So Instagram, though, when you're talking about generating leads, Instagram
yes.
is the one that you do.
100%.
You mentioned you liked building out your systems. You're really trying to build this into a machine that kind of brings you leads, and then you can display them pretty easily. So talk about that machine. What are the steps that you have to turn those social media leads into clients and then into sold deals?
Yeah, exactly. So what we try to focus on is the automation of it, because I realize I can't do everything myself. Like I can't manually send every message. I can't manually follow up all the time. Now I can, but if I really want to scale it up, then I have to use the system. So what we've set up in place has been specific automations and certain triggers. So for example, if we say, all right, we post a post or we make a story and we say, okay, if anybody has any properties that they want to sell us, DM us the word home. Now, the moment someone DMs us the word home, what happens is an automation now goes into effect where a certain sequence happens, whether it's a follow-up, whether it's a call, whether it routes to the ISAs to call, whether it routes to me to call, whether a notification is sent to my phone. But there's a certain triggers, a certain sequence that happens with every single step of the process to make sure that no balls get dropped as far as any leads coming in.
Yeah. Are you guys, we've used AI receptionists in the past for our own businesses. Is that something you guys have played around with?
I haven't necessarily gotten to the AI receptionist yet. I've done a few examples and done a few modules of them, but I haven't. I mean, we have ISAs right now, inside sales agents like VAs from the Philippines, and they work pretty well currently.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, hey, I just took a peek at the clock. It looks like we have run it down, so it's time to jump into the quick question round. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Starts with education. It could be any form. It could be a book you've read, a movie you've seen, a conference you've gone to, mentorship program you've been a part of, anything like that. I just need to give you to give the listeners one recommendation for real estate.
The book Wealth Without Cash by Pace Morby.
Say that again.
The book Wealth Without Cash by Pace Morby.
Wealth Without Cash. Yeah, Pace, he's the one that's really into creative financing, isn't he?
Yep, exactly, yep.
Very cool. All right. Next question is for your younger self. Let's go back to the Chris who was just doing that first subject to deal. I can't remember what year you said that was, but go back to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
That's good. I would say one piece of advice for the younger Chris is be fearless. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just do things. Just try. And you can't really go wrong buying real estate. So just buy.
I like it. Be fearless. I'm going to put that in the bucket of, you can't really say that. I wish I got started sooner, but we always like to tie it back to that because so many people say they wish they got started sooner. Or they wish they had gone harder sooner or anything like that.
For sure.
And whenever somebody says that, be fearless kind of fits into that category because you're just saying like, I wish I would have just, screwed the fear and just gone for it.
For sure.
And whenever somebody says that, I always like to point it back to you, the listener. If you have not gotten a deal done, if you're sitting on the sidelines, you're absorbing information, but not taking any action, this is your kick in the pants. Go out there, just get a deal done. Everybody that's on the show, we've had over 600 guests now. Every single one that comes on here wishes they got started sooner.
Yes.
So now is your opportunity. Go out there, get a single deal done. Can be anything. Could be a piece of dirt, could be a single family home, could be a self-storage facility, but just go out there and get it done. All right, that leads us to the next question. This is about the U.S. It's a big place. There is a lot of opportunity out there. Give me the single metro you're most excited about investing in today. Hey guys, quick break from the show. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know we are always talking about how important it is to have the right mentors and partners in real estate, which is exactly why I've opened up the Real Estate Investing Club online community. It's a place for active investors to learn, collaborate, and get real deals done together. And right now, it is 100% free to join. We host weekly calls where we review deals, talk strategy, and share tactics. Just click the link in the description below and come join us.
The single metro I'm excited about. I would say the hometown, my area, Hampton Roads in Virginia. I really am excited about it because it's a transient community, meaning we have so much people moving because of the military specifically. So I always think our area is going to be very stable versus other markets can kind of be volatile based on what's happening in politics and such. So we're always going to be stable.
Yeah, military base areas or areas surrounding military bases are very stable.
Yes.
Military bases generally do not move.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get closed down, but generally they are there. They're a huge employment base.
Yes.
And so, yeah, great suggestion. Next question is about, we've already talked about this a little bit. In fact, so much that I'm going to skip this one. I was going to say your favorite way to find leads, but you've already mentioned social media is your bread and butter when it comes to leads. And so, question after that is about lessons learned. Not every deal we get into goes the way we expect it. In fact, pretty much every single time something's going to go wrong, and that's when we get to learn a lesson. So what was a deal that went a little bit sideways for you, and then what was the lesson you pulled from it?
Actually probably a deal that I just finished up with, which was a BRRRR. This is my first time doing a BRRRR. And what I did, because I was doing so much at the time, I didn't underwrite my deal properly. Well, I did, but also I didn't negotiate the seller down to where I should have. And that came to bite me in the butt with me having to bring more out of pocket to finish the deal than in which I expected. Versus if I could have just got the seller, $20K lower, which he was willing to do, I could have saved a lot of money, saved a lot of headache, and saved a lot of time. So I would say the lesson underwrite.
No, I didn't mean to jump in there. I was just going to add on when you guys are negotiating, be ruthless in negotiations. Yes. And the reason I say that is because each party on both sides of the table it's their job to be ruthless because the correct sale price is where those parties meet, where the lines meet. And so if you're being kind in negotiations and you're trying to give them something, that really sways it in their favor. That is in a way that's not real. That's not accurate. So you're going to be the one that's getting stuck with a bad deal. And I even did that. One of the first flips I did way back, it was like 2018 or something like that. It was a single family, and I was negotiating with this guy, and he He wanted this price that was above what I thought I could offer, but I really wanted to get a deal done. And so I accepted it. Me and my buddy, we flipped it ourselves. And this was the last time we did that because we're horrible contractors. But in the end, we made $16,000, which, you know, 16,000 to some people, no. It sounds good. But if you spend 6 months swinging a hammer and you get paid 16,000 that you have to split, so each partner got 8,000, you are kicking yourself. And that all happened because I didn't stick to the number that I knew was right. And so anytime that you are negotiating out there, guys, just if you have a deal, if you have a number in mind that you feel like is accurate, do not sway from that at all. Don't give an inch in that number because you don't want to be the one that's kind of left with the bag there.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, that leads us to the next question. So we just talked about lessons learned. On the other side of that, sometimes things go right, and that is your highlight reel. That is the deal that kind of stands out in your mind as something that you enjoyed, and that kind of things went the way that you expected, and it stands out as your favorite. So what deal is that for you?
Yeah, I would say going back to that second deal that I was referring to, the one in which I did the wrap strategy for. So for me to even acquire that deal, it only cost me $3,500 out of pocket just for me to pay my closing costs and the seller's closing costs. And my tenant for the wrap strategy, they gave me a $12K down payment. So my cash on cash return, which is amazingly high immediately, and then plus it cash flows around $1,000 a month now currently. So nice. I would say that was a huge highlight.
Yeah, I love it. All right, next question. There we go. We actually already touched on this one a little bit, but I'm going to ask it anyways. This is about AI. We are I'm a huge fan of AI. I try to implement it in as many places as I can responsibly do so in my businesses. So if you're using AI, where are you using it, and how can you recommend people do it in their own business?
Yeah, man. Honestly, I'm kind of basic. Like, I'm a big fan of ChatGPT. Like, I use ChatGPT every single day. I call it my personal assistant. Like, I talk to it probably more than I talk to anybody else, to be honest with you. Helps me out with scripts, with SOPs, with even just different strategy. Like, I'll input a problem and I'll say, think as a high-level consultant. It's all about how you prompt ChatGPT also. That's a huge thing. And then it'll give me a possible solution, and it's really helpful for the business.
Yeah. That's one way. That's one method that we don't generally talk about here on the show. Is using AI as kind of like your mentor, or coach, or whatever word you want to use, but somebody who's guiding your decisions. And it's like having a full team of research assistants on your side, guiding. You can just feed it information and say, "Hey, help me make this decision," and they'll be able to give you an honest answer that sometimes if you bring it to somebody with a lot of experience, that's obviously better, but AI is there that you can just pull it up and get guidance on the fly. So I love that.
Yeah.
All right, second and last question. This is about mentorship. So who was a key person that changed your trajectory, be it a mentor, a partner, broker, lender, whatever, and how did that relationship happen, and what'd you do to earn the trust?
Yeah, I would say a key person that has changed my life has been a person. I mean, he calls me more of a brother, but I see him like a mentor. Is Geo Paradise. He's now we're partners in the brokerage together, but he's really the one who encouraged me heavily to invest in real estate specifically. He was one of the investors I first started working with. And I was content with like doing his deals and giving him deals, but he was like, no, you should be doing this yourself. Like, I want to see you making like this type of money and such. So just his advice, and he's always been willing to give me advice over the years and just help elevate me and put me in different positions. And I mean, honestly, how I earned his trust is, I think, just hard work and just showing up. Like, I've always just been a hard worker. And even when I didn't have the knowledge, just the hunger to have the knowledge and be willing to ask questions.
Nice. I love it. All right, that leads us to the very last question. This is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. This is a two-parter. Where can they find you? And then what can they expect when they reach out?
Yes. So you guys can find me on all social media platforms, including YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at I am Chris A. Williams. Don't forget the A. I am Chris A. Williams specifically. And on my platforms, I talk about all things when it comes to real estate or real estate investing. My specialize is really just teaching people how to make more money in real estate.
Cool, man. I'll put that link in the show notes. So if y'all want to reach out, all you got to do is click the little more in the description. It's going to pull down that full description. In there, you can find Chris's links.
Sweet.
All right, that wraps it up. Thank you very much for hopping on the show.
All right, Gabe, thank you so much for having me, and thank you again.
Absolutely. For everybody who's with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to me, Gabe, at therealestateinvestingclub.com. If you guys want to support the show, just leave us a review, a comment, anything like that. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. All right, before I officially sign off, I have a quick announcement to make. If you're interested in becoming a passive investor in one of my deals, my own company, Kaizen Properties, is looking for capital partners for our upcoming projects. We invest in what are known as recession-resistant assets, mainly self-storage facilities, mobile home and RV parks, and industrial properties. If you're interested in investing and would like to learn a little bit more about my company, our investing criteria, and some of the previous projects we've done, go to the Real Estate Investing Club podcast at therealestateinvestingclub.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. Click on the Invest With Us button. That'll pop up the investor form. Fill that out, and we will reach back out to you as soon as we can. Or if you prefer a little bit more of a personal touch, you can reach out to me at gabe@therealestateinvestingclub.com. So really, that is it. Again, it was a pleasure hanging out with you guys during this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.